metaphysical basis on identity. And that's very unstable.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's so unstable. And then you have games that are not played on, hey, let's kind of advocate for wages or working conditions or cash redistribution. You're actually then jockeying on the position of identity. And so you have an economically artificial institution, limited positions, highly ambitious people that are then jockeying for position based on identity. I mean, it's like that is a recipe for
it's a real
toxic
derivative
environment.
game in some sense, right? So it's already a derivative of reality when you're talking about money. But when you're talking about identity, you've moved one step further up the abstraction hierarchy, like a financial derivative. And so things get very unstable and vacillate a tremendous amount. I mean, because the Marxist game, as you pointed out, for the longest time, and then even the valid socialist game, was essentially economic. Like the fundamental battlefield was, what slice of the pie does the working class get? And certainly labor leaders and people like that who were genuine socialists in the English tradition rather than the Marxist tradition were doing what they could to be, some of them at least, to be an honest voice for the oppressed working class. And also, I think, as some intelligent leftists still continue to do, and I'm thinking about people like Russell Brand, we're also pretty good voices to fight against the dangers of corporate gigantism and regulatory capture, which is something that, well, clearly needs to be addressed probably more now than it has been necessary in the last 70 years, because that's a real threat. And so, all right, so now we've got some reasons for exclusion laid down. So now, okay, so you announce yourself, you come out of the closet, so to speak, as a more conservative thinker, 2016 and 2017. That pretty much devastates your social community, and I presume your livelihood, at least as an NPR documentarist.
Yeah.
That's for sure. And so then what happens?
Well, then I kind of had to scramble, right? And it's difficult. I have a family. I'm, starting to have kids, and I'm kind of at this career crossroads where I've kind of burned all of the bridges, of the past, and then. I said, all right, well, what can I do? What am I good at? What would actually excite me? What would be kind of something that I would want to pursue? And I fell into more conservative circles. I started reaching out to folks, and then, they were really welcoming me with open arms. They said, oh, you're a kind of, a defector from the other side. And in the conservative world, this is a long tradition. One of my own intellectual heroes, James Burnham, was a National Review writer, professor of philosophy, kind of Cold War, one of the Cold War's most trenchant conservative critics, worked with Richard Nixon, worked with McCarthy, and he was formerly Trotsky's personal secretary in the United States. And so we have this long tradition of defectors from the left moving rightward, and so I was welcomed with open arms. And I was provided some really great opportunities. They said, hey, you know how to do reporting, you know how to get on the ground. Why don't you do some research into the homelessness crisis in West Coast cities? I got connected with some of the magazines and publications. And then I just my whole world opened up. I felt like I had the freedom to think for the first time as an adult. I felt like I didn't have to watch what I was saying.
Isn't it so? Well, I've experienced the same thing, man, because I spent a lot of time working with Democrat backroom personnel over the last 6 or 7 years, and hoping to entice, persuade the reasonable Democrats to draw a line between them and the radicals, especially on the DEI front, and also to mostly that, to draw a line, and with very little success. But one of the things that constantly bothered me, because I was also talking to classic liberals and people more on the right at that time, was that whenever I was talking to even relatively moderate people on the left, I had to watch what I was saying all the time.
Yeah.
And it's good to pay attention to what you say and to be careful, but yeah, I get damn sick, damn quick of walking on eggshells when I've got something to say, especially among hypothetical peers that are hypothetically working to solve a problem. It's like, I just want to say what I think. And if you find that, if that's going to disrupt our personal relationship, it's like, maybe I don't want to be around you because it's just too damn annoying. And one of the things I have found, it's been a very big surprise to me that I've ended up as a conservative spokesperson. I am not a conservative person. Like, I'm very high in trade openness. And
Ah.
although I've learned to be a traditionalist, that was hard-won knowledge. I partly learned that because I learned that most social science interventions go dreadfully wrong. I really learned about the iron law of unintended consequences.
Yes.
But one of the things that has happened is that I found it way easier to talk to even fundamentalist, conservative Christian traditionalists than radicals on the left. There's no comparison. And that's a very strange thing. It's not what I expected at all.
And I think that is really where we've seen the flip. I mean, for all of the excesses and problems, I'm, a critic of kind of 1960s, but, they were authentic, they were committed, they had kind of open expression, they were trying to push boundaries. And you kind of flip this on its head. Once the left took institutional control, it is the most restrictive, the most limited, the most restrained, the most punishing orthodoxy. And then you get this to the point where you have now hundreds of thousands of kind of DEI agents, left-wing bureaucrats, enforcers of the orthodoxy, and they just repeat the same 10 points. I've done reporting for now a few years on critical race theory, gender ideology. They inherit a kind of 10 ideas, they dumb them down, they pass them through a bureaucratic, euphemistic filter. And they're like decentralized propaganda agents from Soviet times. It's like, this is the party line. We must say this. You cannot say anything that would contradict the great party line. And it's like, once I ejected from that world, once I opened up this new terrain, and actually, frankly, once I moved out of a big urban center in Seattle and moved out to a smaller town, it's like, this is where kind of actual free thinking, actual the feeling of freedom, the feeling of intellectual possibility. And I think one of the reasons that my work has been successful is because I've been kind of liberated from that stifling orthodoxy, that cultural milieu, that institutional pattern. And then, I see all of these folks attacking me. You can't say this, you can't do this, you have to observe this. The Atlantic wrote a piece recently that said, a qualified endorsement of Christopher Rufo, but it was 90% qualifications and 10% endorsement. Because these folks on the center left, they know they agree with me, but they can't behave as I behave. And really that's because I'm much more free than they are. And I love that feeling. I love that spirit. I love fighting these fights with a sense of doing things that others cannot even contemplate doing because they risk their academic sinecures or whatever.
Yeah, well, that's the joy of having a free tongue, man. Well, it's also very perverse temperamentally, because I looked a lot at what predicted political viewpoints from the temperamental and cognitive front, because if you're looking at individual differences in people's